Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask Rob Trek. And I know it's been a while since I've done one of these, but I got a question the other day from a viewer, and I'll just read it to you. It says, "Hi Rob, your videos are fantastic, but a bit complicated for me at my age. This what I'd like to do is use the iT32 on camera to fire an AD200 flash off camera in TTL mode." And as he mentioned, I do have a video of how to use the iT32 on camera to control multiple off-camera flashes, but to be fair, that video does go into a lot of fine print and details that isn't necessary for such a straightforward setup. And I asked him to be a little bit more specific about the flashes and gear that he has. And he says, specifically, he says, I have an iT32, an IM22, an AD200 Pro, a Nikon X Pro II trigger, and a Nikon SB800. And he wants to use these on his X2D Mark II in off-camera flash mode. So I will show you some options on how to do that, but unfortunately the IM22 and the Nikon SB700 you're gonna have to use in full manual mode, with one exception, and I'll talk about that towards the end. But let's start out with just the very first part of the question. Very straightforward setup: the iT32 on camera to control the AD200 Pro off camera. And I'm going to be doing this on my Olympus OM system camera, but it really shouldn't make any difference what camera model I'm using or that you might be using. All right, so I have an iT32 with the X5 trigger attached, and this is my AD200 Pro, and I'm going to be using it on my Olympus OM1. So first thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and power these up real quick. And the first thing I want to do is assign a channel number on the iT32 and match that on the AD200. So we'll just go into the Wi-Fi and we'll click here. And right now it's on channel 11. And you may have noticed that the AD200 is also on channel 11, but let's say they were in different channels. So we'll say channel 5. There's also an ID number here that we can set. Think of the ID number as a sub-channel. So if I set this to, say, ID number 1, don't think of two separate numbers here. Just think of this as one number, like 5.1 or 5.2. I always have the ID number off, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we're just on channel 5 just to keep things simple. And we're all done on this for now. So what we want to do now is on the AD200 is change this to channel 5. So you do that by pushing and holding the channel button up here until you see the channel number blinking. And then you just rotate the dial down to channel 5. All right, now we have to match the ID number on the AD200 Pro to the iT32. So to do that, we'll go into the menu and we're going to rotate the wheel until we get to F7 or function 7. And you can see the ID number is set to 1 right now. And we need to turn it off because we turned it off on the iT32. So we'll go ahead and click set. It'll start blinking, and then we'll just rotate this to whatever number we need, but in this case, we want it turned off like this. And we'll go ahead and click set and hit the menu, and we're done there. Now the next thing we need to do is assign the AD200 to a group. Right now, it is set to group A, as you can see here. If we need to be in a different group, or we want to use this in a different group, we can just change it by toggling or short pressing the group channel button up here. So you can see we're on A, B, C, D, E, and then back to A. Most likely this will be the key light, so we'll just go ahead and leave this on group A. All right, now let's come over to the iT32, and we need to put the iT32 into transmitter mode to control the AD200 off camera. So we'll go ahead and swipe down here to go into the menu, and we want to go over to this icon here. There's 3 different modes here on this icon. Right now it's set to on-camera mode, so the icon looks a little bit like a flash on camera, and then we touch it again, and this puts it into transmitter mode, and this looks like a flash head with sort of convex half circles in front of it. And then if we touch it again, this is receiver mode, which looks like a flash head with more concave type half circles in front of it. Hopefully you can see that, but we'll go ahead and touch this till we get to this icon here that has the convex half circles, and that puts us into transmitter mode. And then now we can back out and confirm that we're in transmitter mode, because then you'll see M for master flash, which is going to be the power output or mode for the iT32, and then we can control 3 different groups. And as you recall, we assigned the AD200 to group A. And right now, if I adjust the power here, you can see it's changing. But this is manual mode. We want to have this in TTL mode. So all we have to do is just touch and hold right on group A like that. That turns it off. We'll touch and hold again, and that puts it in the TTL mode. So pressing and holding on the group toggles it between the three different modes: off, TTL, and manual. So we'll go ahead and toggle this into TTL mode. And right now you see 0.0. This is the exposure compensation if you want to dial any in directly. So right now I'm dialing in +2 exposure compensation, or I can go back and I can dial in -1. So we'll just leave this at 0. You'll also notice on the AD200 Pro that it's now in TTL mode and it's in group A. So that's why I'm controlling group A here. If this was in group B, for example, I would have to turn on group B and make changes here if I wanted, or I could just put it into manual mode, and you can see I'm changing it now because this is now in group B. But we're going to leave it on group A, so I'm going to turn this off and put this back into group A. All right, now that I have the flash attached, we can just do a test shot, and it really doesn't matter what mode the camera's in. Right now I have mine in manual mode at 1/250 the second, f4 ISO, or auto ISO 200. And that's normally how I shoot. Actually, I normally set the ISO to fixed 200. I can't teach exposure with flash in this particular episode because, you know, that has so many variables, but let's just do a test shot in full manual mode on the camera. And if we take a look here at the shot, you can see it looks like I got a decent exposure there in TTL mode. Now, one other option that you have is you can use the iT32 in combination with the AD200 off camera. Because right now you can see that the M or master flash is turned off. And in this case, when the iT32 is on camera and in transmitter mode, it is also the master flash. So I can put this in the TTL mode as well, just by pressing and holding there on the master. And I'll just do another test shot and take a look. And I can see that I got another even exposure, even though both flashes fired. And so what I would normally do is I would probably use this as like a fill flash, and then I would use this as a key light, say in a modifier or something. But again, there's a lot of variables there, so I won't get into that. But let's go ahead and put the camera into, say, program mode and auto ISO. And let's do another shot like this and see what happens. And yep, I got another even exposure there. I can compare it to the previous two shots, and they all look exactly the same. So everything's working perfectly fine here. Now, you also mentioned that you have the X Pro II trigger, and the X Pro II trigger can control, you know, the iT32 and the AD200 off camera. So all we have to do is match the channel number and assign the AD200 and the iT32 to different groups, or even the same group if you want. But first, let's go ahead and set up the channel number on the X Pro II. So we're going to click on the menu button. And the first icon here on page 1, there's 2 pages. We're going to go ahead and click on that with the set button, and then click on, it's highlighting channel now, so we'll go ahead and click set again, and we can change this to channel 5 because we assigned channel 5 to the 2 flashes. Now, what's nice about the X Pro II trigger is you can also scan for a clear channel. So if channel 5 is congested and you're getting misfires, the X Pro II gives you the ability to go down here and scan. So go ahead and click on that, and we'll do start. And this takes about, 30 seconds or so, so we'll come back when it's done. Okay, it's almost done. And now it's giving a list of channels that we can use that are clear in this particular location. So I'm just going to pick, say, channel 11, for example. So all I have to do is go back up here, select channel, scroll down to channel 11, and set that. And then one other thing you'll see here is the ID number. We want to make sure that's turned off, or we can change it to whatever we need here, but we're going to turn that off. And then we also have distance here, so I'm just going to leave that to 0 to 30. That seems to work best for me. And now we're all done, and we'll back out. And click the menu button. So now we're on channel 11. I'll just go ahead and set these up real quick. I'll go into the Wi-Fi menu and change this to channel 11. And then we'll do the same thing here. So we push and hold and change this to channel 11 and set. Okay, now I need to put the iT32 into receiver mode because I'm going to be using this off camera. So we'll scroll down and we'll go back to the same icon we used before, and that's receiver mode with the concave half circles. And double check here, channel 11 looks good, and we're in TTL mode. But you'll notice that this is assigned to group A. I'm going to go ahead and change this to be into group B, because if I leave it on group A, and this AD200 is also on group A, whatever power I set in group A, they're both in TTL mode right now. This is going to use the flashes, you know, and adjust the power accordingly at the same level. However, the AD200 is a much more powerful flash than the iT32, so I might need to make some power adjustments between the two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change the iT32 to be in group B. So now we're in group B. And then on the X Pro trigger, I can just click on this second button here and change the mode to TTL mode. And I'll go ahead and put that to 0. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to A and maybe dial in, say, -1. And now I should be able to go ahead and just do a test shot. So I'm going to push the test fire button here and see if these fire. Yep, everything looks good. Now, one other thing I want to show you on the X Pro trigger is that right now I'm seeing all the groups at the same time. This is my preferred way to look at things when I'm using multiple flashes. But if I want to zoom in on one of these, I just click on the magnifying glass here. Right now we're on A. If I click this magnifying glass, it'll enlarge the settings for group A. So this just makes it easier to read. And then if I want to see group B, I just click the second button here, and now I can see group B settings, and so on, group C, D, and E, and then back to A. And at this point, all I really have to do is just put this onto the camera, and then I can do a test shot again. So I'll just do that real quick, and we'll take a look, and yep, got the same exposure again, looks good. Okay, you also mentioned that you have the Nikon SB700. I have the Nikon SB800 here, and you cannot fire this flash using these triggers off camera. But you can fire this flash optically using the optical trigger here if you're in full manual mode across the board. So you cannot be in TTL mode and fire this flash. You have to be in full manual on the triggers and the other two flashes. So to do that, you have to go into the menu. It's a little different on the SB800, but I'll go into the menu here. I'm going to select this icon here. And on the SB700, just like on the SB800, you have to put it in SU4 mode. And I'll go ahead and select that, and then I'll just go back out. So on my screen, I'm seeing the word remote. So now, anytime I fire this flash, I don't know if you can see it, but the Nikon flash is also firing. If I have this in TTL mode, TTL mode fires two flashes. There's a pre-flash to adjust exposure, then there's the second flash that actually creates the light. And that's going to make this misfire. So you always have to be in full manual mode when you're firing and trying to fire this flash off camera optically. Now there is an option to control the Nikon flashes with your Godox triggers, whether it's like an X Pro or the iT32 in transmitter mode. But you have to buy a separate module. It's called the Godox XR for Nikon. And you just attach it to the bottom here, and then it'll give you full TTL compatibility, high-speed sync, all that good stuff with that adapter or module that you put onto the bottom of this flash. And then again, you'll be able to use your Nikon flashes off camera and fire them using your Godox triggers. Now you also mentioned that you have a Godox IM22, which is just this little tiny on-camera flash that is full manual and doesn't have any TTL capability, and it really can't be used off camera because it doesn't have an optical trigger of any kind. However, you can use it to fire other off-camera flashes if they have an optical trigger, but of course you're going to be in full manual mode across the board. But there is that option. Anyway, I hope you're able to get everything working, and if you or anyone has any questions, just leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them or even make a whole nother video. And if you enjoy these videos and find them helpful, you can make a donation or buy me a coffee using the links below. But either way, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your questions, and I hope to see you all again soon.